thank you for tuning in to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna, and dancing over there is Kelly.
Hey.
Kind of can be explained as dancing, but it's more
dancing.
wiggling.
Yeah. It's like I have to pee.
Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
You guys to check out our Facebook, our Twitter, and Instagram. So you can click on the links that we're going to put in the show notes to get to our social media pages. All the links for any of our research materials will also be in the show notes if you want to check out some more articles and recommendations for the story that we're going to cover. And we wanted to remind you to rate, review, subscribe. We really appreciate it. And as always, we're going to read some of your 5-star reviews.
Woohoo.
So thank you so much to all you guys for giving us reviews. We really, really appreciate it. So we wanted to shout out a few people. There's a few more than normal today, so I'll try and keep it brief.
What?
So Rudy, first off, said that we are informative, excellent, and they can't get enough.
I've never heard that in my life. Thank you so much.
Usually people are like, dude, enough.
Yeah.
Enough already. Knock it off.
You're at a 10. I need you at a 0 to maybe a 1.
A 0.5.
Yeah.
Can you step it down a notch?
Excellent. I've never been called excellent in my life.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate that,
thanks.
Rudy. That's awesome. Also, we wanted to thank Dee, who said that we have a great pod to learn and laugh. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That's what we're
Dee.
going for, so we appreciate you. Also, DJ String said that we help bring humor to a heavy subject. That's also one of our goals.
That's awesome.
I know that it's hard to, laugh and joke about murder, but we're trying to keep it light, so we appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I hope I'm saying this right. Cyrita, I think. Syreeta, Cyrita,
Yes, sounds pretty
says that Murder Dictionary is her favorite podcast and our laughs are contagious.
Aw.
We appreciate that because
Thanks.
usually I annoy myself with my own laugh.
Yeah.
But I can't help it. I laugh too much.
I turn it down when we're laughing. When I'm laughing, your laugh is good.
I adjust the volume on our laughs a lot of times.
I like when you laugh at me. It's the best laugh. And no one can see it, but you tilt your head back. It's so good.
It's a belly laugh
Yeah.
for sure. So thank you so much to Cyrita. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
A couple more. The next one is Natellev, who called our podcast a good old time and said she feels like she's right there in our conversation. So we really appreciate that. And I actually know who this person is. Mm-hmm. You should check out their Instagram because Natellev, Nutelluv,
Mm-hmm.
is an Instagram for Ingrid and her relationship with Nutella. So it's like typical relationship pictures, like being on the beach or being in the bed or waking up next to each other and just like, I love waking up next to Bae and all that, but it's her and Nutella.
Oh my God.
So it's really adorable. It's amazing. You guys should check that
I'm
out.
gonna check that out.
We
right
love
when I get
Nutella.
Oh, yeah.
And the last one that we have is Rob and Slim Show. They appreciate our banter and our jokes. Rob and Slim are also podcasters. If you don't listen to them, they have like a kind of morning radio style or like a drive time radio show where it's like 3 hours of comedy,
What?
a lot of games, a lot of like weird trivia. And sometimes I don't know why I really like this so much, but remember on Jackass when Steve-O would just eat crazy things and barf a lot?
And barf, yeah.
It's pretty much a lot of that too, which I love.
So good.
For some weird reason.
And
so
is
they
there-
have a lot of games that are really hilarious. I love checking them out.
Anything go in their butt like Steve-O's?
No butt action that I've seen thus far, but if you guys want to see that, you guys can holler at the Robin Slim Show.
I'm excited. Yeah, it's a game. I'm going to check it out.
So I think that's it for our 5-star reviews. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you. So next week, we will hopefully read some more. If you guys can rate, review, and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. The last thing we wanted to mention was March is the month of tripod. I'm not sure if you guys are participating, but we've shouted out a few podcasts with the hashtag tripod, TRY pod. If you guys have recommendations, we would love to hear them, and we appreciate the people that have already shouted us out. So this month, if you guys aren't aware of what tripod is, it's a month where you can recommend to people what podcasts to listen to. A lot of that is just new things that they haven't heard of. Also, it's telling people that maybe aren't even aware of what a podcast is, what it is, because you'd be surprised how often people don't know. I tried explaining to my dad a few days ago, which went over really well because he just recently got rid of his flip phone.
Go dad.
So trying to explain that to him, and I was like, it's kind of like a radio show, but kind of like you have on-demand TV, so you can listen to it anytime. So if you guys have a good way of explaining what a podcast is, I'd love to hear that too, because my dad was just not getting it. My mom had to jump in and be like, okay, don't worry, I'll show you.
Like, thanks, Mom, you got this. Take it from here, Mom.
So if you guys shout us out, we really appreciate that. We've been retweeting a lot of people. We really appreciate you, and we will continue to give out our recommendations as well.
You know what? It's better than my dad. My dad, two seconds into telling him what a podcast would be, he's like, I don't listen to that shit. I don't.
Just shut that shit down.
Yeah, what am I going to listen to radio for? What do I need to? It's such a negative Nancy.
I could be a supportive dad, but instead I'm just going to shit on you.
Yeah. He's so funny. Oh, man.
I think dads are just reluctant to change. You know, it's kind of their thing. They've got the market cornered on being hesitant to adopt technology.
Yeah, he feels, my stepmom loads all the songs onto his iPod. So the other day when I called him at work, he was like, you know, Peggy loaded all these songs on the iPod and it's pretty cool. It's cool. I get to listen to songs. I've just been sitting at my desk for hours listening to music.
Jamming out to my dad tunes.
It's just a bunch of ABBA.
A lot of Journey.
Yeah. ABBA and
Some
Journey.
Foreigner.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of having a few stories or a couple stories, we're going to do one longer story and also a game, which is new. But we want to give it a try to do some like fun murder-related games.
I'm so competitive. You're going down. I fucking win. I already know.
I wasn't even going to keep score. I'm so not competitive. I was like, this will be fun.
Nope.
You're just trying to take me down.
I'm keeping score.
Well, it's good to know that I decided to do games now.
Fucking smashing you.
Welcome to the jungle, motherfucker. 2 men enter, 1 man leave.
Prepare to die, Brianna. This is my house.
So if next week I'm not on the podcast, you know what happened.
Yeah.
The game went terribly awry.
I won. That's what happened.
So today is part 1 of our Killer Kids, and we're going to start out with Jesse Pomeroy. 23-year-old Thomas Pomeroy married teenage Ruth Ann Snowman in the early 1850s in Charlestown, Massachusetts. How much money would you give to have that last name? Especially that it rhymes. It just,
Ruth Ann
it's
Snowman.
the gift that keeps on giving.
I thought you were fucking with me.
No, dead serious about that one. Ruth Ann became a tailor and dressmaker. Thomas was a Civil War veteran who rarely found work and spent most of his time as an unemployed drunk. Best job ever. In 1857, they had their first son named Charles. Then in 1859, their youngest son, Jesse, was born. The couple fought often. However, the boy's father, Thomas, usually took his anger and frustration out on the children.
Who, the drunk? No way.
Surprise, surprise. Their father would often cross the line into physical abuse when disciplining his mischievous sons. But sometimes he would start hitting Charles and Jesse for no reason at all. On those occasions when Thomas didn't tell the boys any reason or explanation for the abuse, he would even flip a coin to decide which boy would be the victim of that day's incident.
This motherfucker.
Right? That's particularly sadistic to me.
Yeah.
That is fucked up.
You don't want to hope your brother gets it, but at the same time,
that's such a fucking...
You don't want it to be you.
Mental torture. By all accounts, Jesse suffered the worst, and his father was much more violent towards him than his older brother. Thomas Pomeroy's preferred method of abusing his sons was to take them out to the outhouse, tie their hands to a beam on the ceiling, take off their clothes, and hit them or whip them.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really think that you should spank your kids.
Yeah.
It's like my opinion.
Just make them watch the news.
You're going to watch CNN for 4 hours and you're going to like it, Timmy.
Oh, come on, Mom. Yeah, I guess there's got to be better methods. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, duh. I know, no shit. But
yeah.
I mean, as a victim of child abuse, I don't think hitting kids is totally awesome at all. But I definitely noticed I started to hit things after, too, as a kid.
Yeah.
Now I don't. But yeah,
it causes violence in your kids when you hit them, period.
Yeah, it's
no matter what the
reaction.
severity is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole, like, wait till your father gets home type thing is so scary.
And it creates this weird dynamic between your parents where one parent is
the nurturer.
Yeah, and the other one is more a source of terror.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
The enforcer.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not the experience that I had. I was spanked once. I do know that. I was 3 years old. My dad spanked me and I ran away. I mean, like literally packed up a bunch of toys in a little bag, left the house, went to the end of the block, just boned out and headed for a women's shelter.
Yeah. At the age of 3.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Baby doing? Why's that baby got a suitcase?
Yeah. But I was just not going to stand for it.
Yeah.
Even at 3, I was like, this ain't right. And it didn't happen again. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was a quiet kid.
Yeah, it scared the shit out of us.
Yeah.
We knew not to fuck around, so.
Did any of your behavior change?
No.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It just doesn't.
No, I got worse. Yeah, don't hit your kids. Fuck
yeah,
them
that's
up.
bad.
Yeah, I did a lot of drugs. Thanks to thanks to spanking.
Because of the hits?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Unfortunately, this kid did not have drugs. The youngest son, Jesse, became introverted and combative, usually a result of abuse. Mm-hmm. Jesse retreated into books, often reading what was known as dime novels, which were actually intended for adults.
They got dime pieces all over them? Is that what it is? Am I wrong?
Some dime sacks of books.
Yeah.
The novels he read contained stories full of sex, gore, violence, crime, and mayhem. These are all of my favorite things.
Yeah, I just went with anime. It was pretty similar.
Right? Today, we would equate it to a child watching an R-rated movie or playing extremely violent video games. It is not a matter of the dime novels making him violent. However, he clearly sought out entertainment that was violent and sexual in nature. His teachers recall that he was not very social and had difficulty getting along with his peers. Part of the problem was that he was the victim of severe bullying. But his teachers said he would be combative and instigate fights with other children, even without other kids having any negativity towards him. I never got in a fight as a kid. You were a scrappy kid, weren't you?
Sure was. I got suspended. I pushed a kid down the stairs. I bit a kid during dodgeball. No, not dodgeball. What's the fucking tetherball? The kid took the tetherball and it was my serve and I bit him and it was a Christian school. I got suspended a lot.
Don't fuck with my serve.
I pushed my friend down some concrete stairs. And
That's your friend?
Yeah, we had some sleepovers. Yeah. She pissed me off. I was also bullied and a child of violence. So
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the cycle. Oy. Jesse was bullied because there were many things that made him different than the other children. By all accounts, Jesse was developmentally delayed, but not diagnosed with a specific disability. He also suffered from violent shaking fits and seizures, although it is also unclear if he was diagnosed as epileptic. As a child, he was larger than other children his age, and many people would mistake him for being older or thought he was held back a year in school. Jesse had a hair lip, and people recall he rarely smiled.
Explain.
I think I'll have to just bring up pictures for you after the show.
Because I thought it was going to be spelled like hair, like hairy, but it's spelled like a rabbit hair.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's kind of a...
Is it like a bunny?
I'll have to show you.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a mark in the middle. It's a deformity of the upper lip.
Oh, do it with your mouth right now?
I can't.
I thought you were about to try.
I was trying, right? I was like pushing.
You're like, I'll just show you.
He had large ears that protruded out from what was often described as a larger than average size head. In fact, the thing Jesse seemed most insecure about was the size of his head. From childhood through to adulthood, people recall he would frequently ask family, friends, and even strangers if they thought his head was big. I can't imagine walking up to someone on the street and being like, hey, am I a big head?
How do you say, like, yeah, dude? You're like, why would you say yeah?
On a scale of 1 to watermelon, how big is my head?
I'd say you're more of a pumpkin. You're definitely more ridgy and pumpkin-y, more wide.
But one of those pumpkins that you need a tractor to move.
Yeah. And those pumpkins with the hair lips. Oh, we should stop bullying the kid that got bullied.
I know. But also, he's a murderer. I don't feel bad talking shit about murderers. There's something about it where I'm just like, fuck this guy. Anyway, however, the most notable and prominent feature that people bullied Jesse for was a thick film that covered his eye, making it appear mostly white. Oh. Yeah. Right?
Oh, you got the milky eye.
People often called it a marble eye.
Oh.
Like, oh.
That's in like every scary movie. Like, have you, when there's like some old person and then they take off a glass or something.
But that person can usually do magic and they're a badass.
Or they can see into the future.
Or they murder people.
Yeah.
Ruth Ann said the white swirled eye was the result of a smallpox vaccine. She was the OG anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, it probably caused his shaking fits and seizures too.
Right? She's Jenny McCarthy right there. Even though Jesse's older brother Charles was at his school, he didn't stick up for Jesse or offer any protection. Charles was apparently a bit girl crazy from a very young age and was always socializing with friends and girls instead of looking out for his baby brother. Did you ever have siblings that were at your school?
No, I missed them all, but my teachers had them.
Oh, so you were like, oh, I know your brother.
Yeah, but they were all fuck-ups. Yeah. And so they're like, oh, you're whose brother? It never worked out in my advantage.
Oh, no.
They were all fucking
You're like,
weed
I'm
smokers.
a nice girl, I swear.
Yeah. I won't fuck up like they did, I swear. What about you? Wait, no, you have a baby brother, so you would have
my
been
brother's so much younger than me. I wish I would have, because I would have been like, don't you fucking look at him. I'll kill you.
Wait, I had my little sister when I was younger, and then I always protected her. I'd get in fights with people with her. Yeah, I always protect. I mean, I would fuck with her. Yeah, I still do. I fuck with her, but I'd be like, no, you can't fuck with my little sister. I ripped a kid's shirt, actually. I beat him up and ripped a kid. It was a homegirl shirt. She was my friend, and then...
Why do you... Come on, man.
Her little brother was fighting my little sister. Sorry. I'm sorry.
This is the last episode of Murder Dictionary. As time went on, Jesse started progressing from an antisocial victim of bullying to a bully himself. Jesse would seek out other kids to pick fights with and began having a ton of disciplinary problems at school for fighting and truancy. It seems the only person that comforted and fiercely protected Jesse was his mother. Ruth Ann tried to help Jesse, but she would often go too far and make excuses for Jesse's behavior or flat out refuse to acknowledge Jesse's fault in situations. When animals around the community started getting hurt, Ruth Ann insisted her son had nothing to do with it. When people would say that they had seen Jesse playing with an animal or in the area where an incident had taken place, she would always disagree with their claims and defend him. Even when her own birds were found decapitated inside their home, she still wouldn't accept that Jesse had been the one to kill her birds.
That's fucked up. How much more proof do you need?
So much denial. She just doesn't want to see it.
Must have been the cat.
Right? Oh, wait, we don't have one.
Aw. Must have been the neighbor's cat.
She talked about getting another pair of birds, but never did. So there must have been a part of her that knew the family pets wouldn't be safe around Jesse. However, when their next-door neighbor's cat went missing and was later found dead, the neighbor immediately knew it was Jesse. He was accused of killing the cat, but there was no solid proof that he had done it, so he was never really held accountable. Ruth Ann would always maintain that Jesse was a good kid who was simply reacting to poor treatment from other kids. I mean, she's right in a sense.
Yeah,
but
she
he
is.
has clearly more violence, because his brother is growing up in the same home, but he isn't a sociopath, you know?
Yeah.
So he's not turning that anger out on other people.
He also, I mean, she's got part of it, right? But he's also simply reacting to the poor treatment by his dad.
Right.
You know, and she doesn't admit any of that. And that's your fucking fault too. So you just want to play dumb. And,
Right.
I mean, in reality, the dad has more to do with it than the kids. It's, again, that chain reaction. So.
100%.
I hate when people kill animals. Like, I know the whole people thing is bad too, but it's like...
There's something about it that escalates the story, definitely.
Kitty,
it's terrible. I hate it.
Yeah.
She would assert that he would not cause trouble or get in fights if people would just stop bullying him. It's clear that her son was troubled and sad, but Ruth Ann blamed Jesse's classmates for his bad behavior and always insisted that if he was left alone by the other children, he would never be mischievous or violent. Even without provocation from other kids, it seems Jesse was deeply jealous and angry about other kids. He envied their loving homes they came from and the fact that they did not struggle with his physical and medical issues. In 1871, when Jesse was only 11 years old, he progressed from bullying and animal cruelty to seeking out smaller children that he could kidnap and torture.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
11. I was like playing with stuffed animals and shit, doing really boring kid stuff.
Yeah. I was kidnapping and torturing other kids. So.
Oh,
That's
cool.
what I was, yeah. I could relate. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Just kidding.
I feel like kids are the creepiest horror movie subjects.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason it's so terrifying to me. It's to see a kid coming at you.
Yeah,
like,
with a hair
how
lip.
Scary.
Do you remember that fucking kid Gage from Pet Cemetery?
I never saw Pet Cemetery.
It's not that good. It's not that good. It's really not. But
he was creepy looking.
he was creepy, and he does this thing where he, this guy's like standing up, and then he's under the bed, and he takes like a scalpel and slices his Achilles tendon. Is that
I'm
what you're-
terrified of that.
I used to check for kids under the bed at all time. Even when I was a kid, I was like, someone's going to slash my fucking heel. That's the scariest thing. That's stuck with me forever. I hate that shit.
Yes. For
And
some reason,
Exorcist.
I don't remember ever seeing that movie, but I've still had that fear. It's
And they
so
show
scary.
it too for a second. It's so good.
No.
It's so good. All right, I like that movie.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Jesse decided that he would start luring younger children out into the woods with a promise of candy, money, or toys, right? But we're always taught to look out for adults.
Yeah,
right? You know?
exactly.
So these poor kids, they thought someone was just trying to play, you know?
Yeah, homie wants to give me some candy and some toys in the middle of the forest. I'm down.
Once they were alone, Jesse would enact the same tied-up whipping that his father would do to him. Jesse's first victim was 4-year-old William Payne.
4 years old,
I know.
dude.
I know. Two men were walking out in the woods and heard noises coming from a small shack. It sounded like crying or whimpering, so they decided to investigate, and the noises became louder as they approached. Once inside, they were shocked to find 4-year-old William Payne naked and tied to the ceiling beam by his wrists. He was almost unconscious from hypothermia, and his hands were blue from being bound. William had also been whipped and was covered in red welts from the attack. The men cut the boy down and brought him to a doctor. The police investigated the incident, but the traumatized 4-year-old had trouble providing details about the kidnapping or his attacker.
It's got to be hard to get details from a 4-year-old in general, let alone like a traumatized.
That's such a
Hypothermic.
huge, awful, traumatic event. There's no way he could remember.
Yeah.
A police report was filed, but the attack was viewed as an isolated incident, and there weren't enough details to apprehend a suspect.
What? Cats are getting killed, birds are getting decapitated, kids are getting left in fucking cabin things tied to. This shit's going on.
Yes, shit's going down.
Shit's going down.
At first, Jesse's violent tendencies were satiated by the attack on William Payne, and months went by without another incident. Then in February 1872, Jesse approached 7-year-old Tracy Hayden and said there were soldiers in the woods and he could take the small boy to see them. Once the two boys were alone, Jesse tied up Tracy, removed his clothes, and got a switch from the wooded area to hit him with.
Switch is like a thin.
Like a stick.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that people say in the South.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know why I think that, but I don't really hear anyone use that terminology now, but I've seen it in stories about the past, basically.
I only remember it from the movie about the Jacksons. when the dad like told Michael to go get a switch from outside.
Yes.
And then because he was offbeat or something.
He then progressed beyond his previous attack and began hitting Tracy in the face. Jesse threatened to cut off his penis and also said that if Tracy ever told anyone, Jesse would find him and kill him. By the time the attack was over, Tracy had a broken nose, broken teeth, and black eyes. Tracy was lucky to be found before freezing to death. Then he was taken to the police station to file a report and give a description of his attacker. Unfortunately, he had trouble recalling a detailed description of his attacker and simply said that he had brown hair. The police anticipated that these attacks would continue, but with only a hair color to go on, they were not very hopeful about catching the attacker.
Aren't they in the same community? Like, wouldn't they run into each other?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But the kids are so young.
Yeah, they probably go to the same fucking school.
Yeah,
if they go
possibly.
to school. Yeah, I don't know. Shit.
Did school exist in the
In
1800s?
1872? I don't think so. They all had jobs working in
Right?
coal mines.
Oh. A few months later, in the spring of 1872, Jesse promised 8-year-old Robert Mayer that he could take him to see the circus. Instead, he took him to an isolated area. As the boys approached a creek, Jesse pushed Robert into the water and held his head down. As Robert came up for air, Jesse knocked him out with a blow to the head, and then dragged him into a shack, tied him up, and took his clothes off. Robert said that Jesse began dancing around and giggling while cursing at him. Jesse began instructing Robert to repeat the curse words that he was yelling. Robert refused, and Jesse began beating him with a stick until Robert gave in and started repeating the profanity. Robert had hoped that his attacker would let up if he did as he was told, but instead Jesse hit him harder. Jesse then started fondling himself while attacking the boy. And Robert recalled that at the worst part of the attack, Jesse masturbated to completion. Robert reported the incident to police, but again, the victim did not recall many details about the attacker. I'm sorry about all this. I feel awful.
Oh, yeah. No, this is awful. But, I mean, I wonder if his dad touched him and stuff, because
Yeah,
it
and
had to have been, right?
I couldn't find any evidence, or any of my research didn't really show that, but it just suggests that he did.
Yeah.
At the very least, the fact that his dad would make him take off his clothes and
that's
kind of
true.
shame him and that kind of stuff was sexual enough to where he
Yeah.
kind of equated the attacks with sex.
He could just be an horny 11-year-old kid.
Yeah,
that
just,
happens.
I don't know.
Jerking
Or,
off.
I don't know, he could have seen it or read it in his stories. I don't know. But it seems to point to when children attack other kids sexually, usually there's molestation in the family.
Yeah. How do you? It's
Most of the
learned.
time. Yeah. So I would be surprised if he wasn't, but I didn't include it in the writing just because I never came across any stories of like a police report about it or anybody witnessing the sexual abuse or
Yeah.
anything. So I didn't really put it in there. But my assumption is that he did.
Oh, I hope he didn't come on those cats.
Oh,
I'm
poor
just-
kitties.
Poor kitties.
Oh. After 3 attacks on children in the area, parents became worried and angry that police had not caught the predator. Newspapers were running stories about the attacks, and journalists referred to Jesse as the boy torturer. Frustrated by the lack of progress in the case, community members rallied together to form a vigilante group dedicated to finding the person that was preying on children in the area.
Yes.
Right?
Getting shit done.
Mm-hmm. Police and community members would question hundreds of teenagers in the area who had brown hair, but they had no success finding a suspect. People in the area became fearful of the violent predator still at large, and every child was afraid of getting taken and attacked. The fear and media coverage led to the posting of a $500 reward for information leading to the arrest of the boy torturer. The reward money was further motivation for community members and vigilantes to get involved. There were even neighbors that formed groups to patrol the streets on shifts looking for the predator still at large. As the community members banded together, rumors spread about the perpetrator of these kidnappings, and somehow many people began to say that the attacker had red hair and a red beard.
Straight to ginger.
Right?
Blame the
That's
gingers.
terrible.
They're way off. What
I
the
know.
fuck?
Like a full-grown man, too.
Yeah.
Parents were warning their children about strangers and to be on the lookout for this boogeyman. But there were conflicting descriptions, and many children were mistakenly told to beware of a red-headed man instead of a brown-haired 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, they just threw brown hair out the window. At least they were on the right path with brown hair.
Also, I think maybe you should just keep your kids inside.
Yeah.
Like, is nobody watching these kids? They're just kind of out being feral children in the streets, or what?
Looking for soldiers and candies and whatever the fuck.
Yeah, they should have been like, don't go with a stranger, period.
Yeah.
Or, hey, here's somebody to supervise you, you know?
Or, hey, I'll walk you home from school.
Right. Buddy system.
Yeah.
There's so many ways. But I don't think babysitters existed before the 1980s.
Yeah, probably
it was
not.
Just a free-for-all. Jesse was undeterred by the extra attention given to the case. And in July 1872, Jesse attacked again. This time he promised a 7-year-old boy that he would give him 2 bits for running an errand and lured him into the woods. He took the boy into an outhouse, tied him up, and removed his clothes. Again, Jesse whipped the boy while masturbating. As Jesse left, he threatened to kill the boy if he left the shack and told anyone. In the summer of 1872, Jesse got in a huge fight with his father, when Thomas seemed to become angry with his son out of nowhere. Jesse refused to comply with Thomas's orders, and instead of submitting to his punishment, he ran out of the house. Thomas chased after him as he ran through the neighborhood trying to get away from his father. Neighbors recall seeing Thomas catch up to Jesse and apprehend him in a violent scuffle. Once he was caught, Thomas dragged his son through the neighborhood back to their house for everyone to see. When they were back in the home, Jesse was instructed to take all of his clothes off, and his father whipped him with a belt. Ruth Ann arrived home to find her son bruised up and cowering away from Thomas. So she grabbed a knife and demanded that Thomas leave.
Yes.
Yep.
Finally.
Get it, girl. The couple separated, and Ruth Ann filed for divorce. It was reported that Ruth Ann was a widow, but it is unclear if Thomas died before or after the divorce was finalized. It is also possible that Ruth Ann simply told people she was a widow, so she didn't have to say she was divorced, since divorce was so taboo in that era. After Thomas was out of the picture, Ruth Ann moved the boys across the Chelsea Creek to a new area in South Boston.
Divorce was taboo, but beating your kids and fucking dragging them through the streets is fine.
100% cool.
Holy shit.
Yep. It is speculated that because of the manhunt for the boy torturer and heightened media attention, Ruth Ann may have chosen to relocate out of fear that her son would be caught for the crimes. Of course, there's no way to know if her instincts were telling her that her son had done these crimes, and Ruth Ann herself always defended Jesse. However, it must have been more difficult for her to be in denial about her son once the attacks stopped happening in Charlestown and began happening in South Boston soon after the family moved to that area.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Right? Like, I'm sure it's not my son, but the crimes are following us.
Coincidence.
Right? Pure coincidence. In August 1872, a sickly 7-year-old boy named George Pratt was looking for treasure on the beach in South Boston when Jesse approached him and offered him a quarter if he helped run an errand. George had been overjoyed by the prospect of buying 25 cents worth of candy and went along with Jesse. That would have been me as a kid. Now I feel bad for saying that.
Why? I like candy too. I'd have been like, that's a lot of Reese's Pieces or a lot of candy.
Can't turn it down.
Nope.
Again, Jesse bound and stripped his victim. Then he struck him with a belt as he told George, "You have told 3 lies." With this attack, his violence escalated further when he also began scratching and biting George, then stabbing the boy with a sewing needle. When George rolled over to his stomach to protect himself from the attacks on his head and eyes, Jesse bit at George's butt before running away. The escalation of violence led police and vigilantes to step up their manhunt, but there was no progress in finding a suspect, and Jesse was clearly not discouraged by the higher risk.
Still no description of the kid. Weren't they looking for like a redheaded kid or something?
Yeah,
that was
the redheaded bearded man.
Yeah, that was in a different state. Yeah, exactly.
Not a kid at all. It's really, I mean, I know all of these victims were totally traumatized, so it's hard to remember the details, but he had so many features that you would think would have popped out at them and really stood out.
A sewing needle, though, that's awful.
I know.
I'm already scared of those.
Yeah, this one that escalated is pretty bad. They're all awful, but you can clearly see he's on this path towards something worse every step of the way.
Escalation.
Harry Austin was the next victim, and this time Jesse escalated to using a knife. In addition to striking 6-year-old Harry with a belt, Jesse used a pocket knife to stab the boy between his shoulders and under each arm. Jesse then threatened to cut off Austin's penis, but as he held the knife to him, he heard a noise and quickly fled the scene. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's terrible. And especially in this era, I don't think they would have had the kind of medical technology to help him out.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to
I don't know if that's weird to say, but it's like you couldn't recover from that in the 1800s.
Yeah, not like the Bobbit dude.
Right.
You can't do
No
porn
way.
after. No.
The attacks began escalating in violence as well as frequency. Only 6 days later, Jesse took 7-year-old Joseph Kennedy out to the deserted marshes near South Boston and attacked him. Jesse told Joseph to repeat a version of the Lord's Prayer with profanity that he added in. When Joseph refused to say the prayer with obscenities, Jesse slashed at him with a knife. He then dragged Joseph towards the water and washed his knife wounds with salt water.
What a dick.
I know.
Jesus.
Fucked up.
Why with obscenities? I don't get, like, that's weird. Just add a fuck in the middle, like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just like, I wrote this poem.
That's
kind of religious, but there's a lot of F-bombs.
I'm going to need you to read this. If I'm a 7-year-old, I'm not going to give a shit about. I'll be like, yeah, I'll say some curse words, no problem.
Right.
I'll add a fuck or two.
Poor kid, he was really
Oh, he was
sweet.
a good kid.
Yeah.
He wasn't a dick kid like I was.
Right? Less than a week after the attack on Joseph, Jesse took 5-year-old Robert Gould out by the railroad tracks. Once they were in a remote area, Jesse removed the boy's clothes and attacked him with a knife. It is believed that Jesse intended to murder this victim, because Robert said Jesse was about to use the knife to slit his throat when he was startled by 2 approaching railroad workers. Jesse ran away and Robert filed a police report. The first break in the case was Robert's thorough description of his attacker.
Finally.
Yes.
Whew.
Good job, Robert.
Yeah.
Unlike previous victims, Robert was able to recall details about Jesse that made him stand out from other kids. Robert described his attacker as a larger child with a downturned mouth, large head, and white eye like a marble.
Sounds like a bass. Like a...
Right. It does sound like some sort of fish. Like a catfish or something. Now that police had a more detailed description, they narrowed down their search. They decided to take Robert to local schools and have him look for his attacker in a classroom-by-classroom search. In fact, on September 21st, 1872, Robert actually searched in a class that Jesse was in. However, when police entered the room with Robert, Jesse simply looked down at his desk and Robert was unable to point him out. If I was the cops or the teacher, I'd be like, hey, kid with your head down.
Yeah.
Put your head up, you know? Like,
the one trying to avoid eye contact.
yeah, clearly there's something suspicious going on. We're not playing heads up 7-Up, bro. Oddly enough, on the same day that Robert had missed Jesse in his classroom, Jesse decided to go to the local police precinct. Since Jesse never expressed guilt or remorse for his actions, it was unlikely that he intended to turn himself in. It is assumed that Jesse was taunting the police and simply playing a game where he got close to the investigation while still attempting to avoid detection. When Jesse arrived at the police station, officers were interviewing previous victim Joe Kennedy in hopes of getting more details. Joe happened to be in front of the precinct when Jesse walked in, and he immediately pointed him out.
Boom.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When Jesse saw his victim notice him, he turned around and ran out the door. Jesse made it down the block before being apprehended by officers. Jesse was interrogated, and detectives were very stern and intimidating. Jesse maintained his innocence throughout the interview. When no progress was made after hours of questioning, the police put him in a cell and told him they were going to call his mother. They left Jesse in the cell till past midnight when they woke him up to continue questioning him. This time the detectives were determined to get a confession and pulled out all the stops to terrify the boy. When they threatened Jesse with a 100-year jail sentence, he broke down and confessed. He was quickly taken to juvenile court, where his victims testified about the horrors that they had endured. Ruth Ann testified in defense of her son, claiming he was a sweet boy who himself was a victim. Like, she's right about that, but that just doesn't justify his behavior. Like, of course, he endured abuse himself, and the father was awful to him, and all that, but there's plenty of people that go through the same things that don't do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Still doesn't mean he didn't do those things. He can still be a victim and be sweet.
That's no defense. She described Jesse as obedient and hardworking, and did not offer up details that she had observed about his troublemaking and violence. Jesse also testified before the court. He showed no remorse and only made excuses. Jesse looked down at the floor and said, "I couldn't help myself." Jesse was sentenced to remain in the custody of the state reform school at Westboro for the remainder of his youth, until he became an adult on his 18th birthday. The community was relieved at the news that the boy torturer was finally off the streets. With all the rumors, gossip, and horror stories circulating the area, people were shocked to learn that the monster who perpetrated these attacks was a 12-year-old who was only 4'9", weighing 90 pounds. By all accounts, Jesse's stay at reform school was without incident. He was on his best behavior, and it is believed that he had a goal of early release. His first job at the reform school was as manual labor, and he was assigned to make chairs. After a while, Jesse became bored of this and began complaining of various aches and pains. He claimed to get headaches, and since the staff feared further damage to his eyes, he was reassigned to be a hall monitor in the dorm. I can't imagine that job made him any more popular.
Yeah.
He was already the victim of bullying, and now you're going to be a hall monitor?
Oh, man, you don't want to be the hall monitor.
No way. He's like Cartman.
It's like my eyes. Oh, no. I didn't know they had hall monitors in juvenile detention centers.
I guess so. I didn't know that until now either.
I thought they just got you out of like class and then you just, you know.
I feel like that's something you earned as like a good behavior in school, you know? But nobody wanted it except for, you know, kiss asses.
Kiss asses, yeah.
It is unknown why the staff would think that the boy torturer should be in a supervisory position over other children. But it is impossible that they did not know about Jesse's crimes. The school used corporal punishment, and Jesse was fascinated by the violence inflicted by the staff. Not only did he delight in having authority over other children, he also abused his power to get other children to recount the details about their punishments. Some children were extremely hesitant to talk about it, so he aggressively bribed them or threatened them. Most of the other children were in reform school for nonviolent offenses, so Jesse was not bullied as harshly as in his previous schools. Plus, many of the kids were too afraid of him to start any issues. Jesse stayed focused on maintaining his record of good behavior, and even when nearly half of the kids fled the school in a massive escape, Jesse remained obediently in his dorm. Only one incident was reported during his stay. A teacher had requested that Jesse help her get rid of a snake in the garden, and Jesse reportedly attacked the animal in a frenzy and took great joy in killing the snake. That's creepy as shit.
Yeah. It's one thing if it's a spider, but a snake.
Yeah, and the way that the staff member recounted it, he was really freaking out. I mean, in a frenzy, just screaming and dancing around, and it was creepy as shit. While Jesse was attempting to remain obedient and well-behaved in reform school, his mother was doing everything in her power to get him freed. Ruth Ann would write to the school, courts, and police, maintaining Jesse's innocence. She insisted he was too young to have committed these crimes and too sweet of a boy to be capable of such violence. So basically her denial runs real deep.
Yeah, she's not even giving good excuses.
Yeah.
Like, he's too young.
He's just too nice.
Yeah, what?
She also asserted that his confession was coerced and was outraged that neither herself nor her son were given the opportunity to speak with a lawyer throughout the process.
Well, she's right.
That's the part where he should have been given a lawyer. There's certain parts of it where, it could have been handled better, but I don't think that they had the laws in place.
Yeah, it's
that
1872.
really made that possible. Yeah.
Fuck it.
Her campaigning to anyone who would listen finally yielded some results when a state investigator was sent to the Pomeroy home to speak with Ruth Ann. The investigator took pity on the widow who ran a dress shop on her own and believed the Pomeroy family needed help with Ruth Ann's dress shop and the newsstand that her older son Charles started. The investigator agreed with Ruth Ann's assertion that Jesse's issues were a result of bullying and abuse from his father. She convinced him that their broken home had led to a lack of supervision, and if she kept a closer eye on him while he worked at the family business, he would stay out of trouble. The investigator submitted his recommendation that Jesse would be better suited back at home helping earn money for his loving family than at reform school. Big mistake.
Yeah, where's the reforming? Like,
right?
What?
The captain of the police precinct agreed with the investigator and said that Jesse deserved a chance to redeem himself. In January 1874, after serving less than 18 months, Jesse was released.
No!
Yes.
That's fucked.
It's so awful. Jesse Pomeroy was far from reformed and had seemingly made a decision that if his victims did not survive, then he could not be caught. In March of 1874, just 6 weeks after his release, 10-year-old Katie Curran disappeared. Early that morning, Katie had asked her mother if she could go to the store to get a new notebook for school. Her mother agreed, giving her money and instructing her to return immediately after she bought the notebook. Katie walked into the Pomeroy's shop while Jesse was setting up for the day, and the Pomeroy's young employee Rudolph Kaur was sweeping the floors. As Katie walked in to look for a notebook in the Pomeroy's store, Jesse handed Rudolph some change and instructed him to go get some scraps from the butchers to feed their cats. When Katie asked Jesse if they had notebooks, he asked her to follow him downstairs so they could go look for them. Once they were downstairs, Jesse attacked Katie with a knife and killed her. He heard his brother walk into the shop upstairs, so he quickly hid her body in a corner, cleaned himself up, and went upstairs and acted like nothing happened. Mary Curran went out looking for her daughter Katie when she did not return from her errand. She went to the shop nearest to their house, where she was informed that they were out of notebooks, but the shopkeeper said he had sent Katie to the Pomeroy's shop. Mary immediately suspected Jesse, but when she went to the police, they told her that Jesse was reformed, and he had never attacked a girl, so he certainly wasn't responsible for Katie's disappearance.
Stupid.
That must have been so awful for her mom. She's like, I know that he's got something to do with it.
Yeah.
And the police are just like, no. He doesn't like ladies.
Yeah, he's reformed.
God, like, how awful.
Yeah, I'd be really frustrated.
Yeah. The longer Katie was missing, the more Mary searched for answers. Shop employee Rudolph told Mary that he had seen Katie in the shop with Jesse that morning. But when she took this information to the police again, she was dismissed. Police told her that Rudolph was a known liar and was most likely making it up.
Compared to someone that's a known kid stabber,
Right.
like notorious for taking kids into weird spots.
It doesn't make sense that they would just keep sticking up for him like this.
Yeah, at least do a sweep of the shop, maybe, check all the nooks and crannies
Right.
just to be safe. Like, I'm sure there's
Yeah.
not probation, but shouldn't he be on fucking probation to where if anyone says
Who's
anything.
his PO?
Yeah.
Here, piss in this cup.
Yeah, seriously.
Have you stabbed someone?
Something.
Because this is just crazy that they're just like, no. I know all signs point to him, but it couldn't be him. Come
It's a
on.
girl? Oh, we don't care.
Right?
Oh, 1872.
The Pomeroys even let Mary look around their shop in an effort to prove Jesse's innocence, and Mary did not find any clues. As time went on, it was theorized that Katie had either run away or been shipped off to a convent by her father. Yeah, it's weird. The police didn't want to intervene, but Jesse's mother was trying to just prove that he was innocent. Mm-hmm. So she was like, go ahead and look around. You'll find nothing, And they didn't, I guess.
How the fuck? Did he move it? Or?
Yeah. He cleaned everything up.
Put it in the freezer. Ice box, whatever they have.
Did those exist?
Ice box.
I don't know anything about history.
I don't know anything about ice, so.
I don't know anything about temperature or science. Weeks later, Jesse approached Harry Fields and asked him if he knew where Vernon Street was. Harry began to give him directions, but Jesse countered with an offer for a few cents if he would take him to Vernon Street himself. As they walked, Jesse pulled Harry into a doorway and started threatening him. He convinced the little boy to keep quiet and led him around the neighborhood searching for a hidden place to attack him. Luckily, a teenager who knew Jesse saw the two boys walking hand in hand and confronted Jesse. As the two teenagers argued, the younger boy escaped and made it safely home. Whew. Thank goodness. This little boy is lucky that the teenager was there, that knew who this person was. And he stepped in, because there's so many stories that we discuss where people don't say anything and they know something's wrong and they know that these two kids shouldn't be together, but they won't step in and stand up for the little one, Well,
obviously everyone knows that he's convicted, he shouldn't be around kids, basically.
He is the boy torturer and everybody just sees him walking around town.
Yeah.
And luckily this dude stepped in.
I wish that dude went to the cops and was like, hey, guess what I saw?
Right?
Walking down the street.
He's not reformed.
Yeah. Remember the girl that was in his shop and went missing too?
Yeah, maybe we should look into that.
No, but he's reformed. he's better.
Oh, my goodness. The Millen family had recently arrived in South Boston and moved in across from the missing girl, Katie Curran's mother, Mary. On April 23rd, 1874, the Millens' youngest son, 4-year-old Horace, asked for a few coins to go get some sweets from the bakery. As he was walking down the street, Horace ran into 14-year-old Jesse, who asked where he was headed.
Whoa. 4-year-old going to go buy some sweets by himself.
Right?
I just noticed that.
Yes.
4 years
crazy.
old?
I don't think babysitters existed. I'm serious.
Jesus. Mm-hmm. Can he even order,
Yeah, I don't think you could see over the counter.
Yeah, he just points.
There's a lot of things wrong with this situation.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know.
And where's the fucking supervision that he was supposed to have from his mom? If I could just watch him better. Why the fuck does he have all this free time to be walking around scouting for little kids?
Yeah, Ruth Ann said she'd keep an eye on him, but clearly he's just running around finding other little children.
She's not reformed either. I'm fucking mad.
I know, right? Yeah, seriously. Jesse said he wanted to go to the bakery too, so the boys walked together. At the bakery, they got a cake, and Jesse suggested they go eat by the harbor. As they walked towards the shoreline, many people recall seeing Horace and Jesse together. Okay, here's another thing. A 4-year-old named Horace.
I really like a reggae singer named Horace Andy. So.
Oh, it's just too grown up of a name.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you can't shorten it.
Yeah.
Hoary. Hoary. Come here, whore.
Like Corey with an H.
Aww, okay.
Now I feel bad because he's about to get murdered.
Yeah. Aww.
Oh, man.
But at least he had cake. So
belly full of cake makes the murder go down. I'm cutting it out.
People saw them together again.
Yeah.
They knew that the boy torturer was hanging out with a boy.
With a 4-year-old.
4-year-old boy.
Yeah. A lot of people just said it looked odd that they didn't really know who Jesse was, but still, if something stands out and is like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
The pair stood out to people for a couple reasons. Horace was too nicely dressed to be playing out by the dirty beach, and Jesse seemed too excited to be playing with or babysitting such a young boy.
Like the snake.
Right. People recall just seeing him
Freak
super stoked to be with this little kid. And it just stood out to them well, that doesn't look like it would be his brother.
Yeah.
I don't know how stoked your siblings were to hang out with you when you were 4. But
Nope.
But nobody's
not this
really that
stoked.
excited about it.
They probably would have liked to see a snake more.
Yeah. Once they were out by the beach, Jesse attacked Horace with a knife. He stabbed the younger boy repeatedly and excessively until he succumbed to his injuries.
On the beach or what?
Yeah, on the beach.
What the fuck? And everyone's just like,
Yeah, I think he took him to a very slightly remote area.
Oh,
there was no
man.
one there. A few hours later, two brothers named George and James Power had gone to the South Boston beaches in search of clams. They were walking along the shoreline when they found the body of Horace Millen.
Not a clam.
Nope. After this attack, police immediately suspected Jesse Pomeroy. As they should, finally.
Because it's a boy. A boy goes missing.
Jeez. When they found him, Jesse had a blood-stained knife in his home.
He could have just chucked it in the ocean.
It was right there.
Right fucking there.
Makes no sense.
Dug a sandcastle and then just buried it all the way at the bottom.
Officers noticed that his shoes were covered in mud and believed his footprints matched the ones at the murder scene. During interrogation, detectives asked him many questions about his activities that day. They also instructed Jesse to let them inspect his clothes, and although he seemed to have changed his outfit, there was still bloodstains on his undergarments. Typical 14-year-old mistake.
Yeah. I bet you all their shoe prints at the time in 1874 looked the same.
Right?
Like,
just flat, right?
Yeah, those aren't Nikes. Those aren't
They don't have a little
Jordans.
swoop at the bottom.
Yeah.
Jesse insisted that police could not prove he had done it, but after police took Jesse to the funeral parlor to see the body, Jesse admitted to the crime and begged police not to tell his mother. Justice moved slowly in the Millen case, and as Jesse awaited trial, countless reporters spread the news throughout local papers. Business at the Pomeroy's shop almost completely stopped, and Ruth Ann was unable to afford to keep the shop open. A neighbor bought the shop to expand his business, and as they began construction, Katie Curran's body was discovered. The body was badly decomposed, and it was impossible to know the extent of her injuries. But now it was undeniable that Jesse Pomeroy had indeed killed her.
That's how you definitely know that the mom really wasn't around. Because if that shit was decomposing...
Right under her nose.
How the fuck would you not smell that? Or be like, oh, there's bad milk somewhere. Let me... Or
Yeah.
bad meat or
not
something.
look into it at all.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you just need
But
to be
also,
watched.
the mother of Katie,
Yeah.
she had gone in there and looked around too. It
Immediately,
seemed-
though.
Yeah.
It probably didn't smell.
Yeah, I think that what he had done is he had covered it up with a bunch of other stuff, like...
Crackers. Baguettes.
Exactly. There was, I think, it was not a compost pile, but basically a bunch of garbage is what it sounded like. And he had just kind of put everything on top of her.
So it would smell weird anyways.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. When questioned about Katie's murder, Jesse initially denied any knowledge of why Katie was found dead in the Pomeroy's basement. Detectives told him they would return to the jail in a couple days after he had some time to think it over and come up with any details. Police informed Jesse that if he couldn't recall any details that would clear his mother and brother of the crime, then his mother would be charged for it. When they returned a couple days later, Jesse confessed to killing Katie and offered up a ton of detail about the crime. Throughout the trial, Jesse would alternate between acknowledging his crimes and denying any wrongdoing. He was constantly confessing and recanting, but one theme remained. He never said he was sorry or expressed any remorse. Ultimately, he would be convicted of the 2 murders and given the death penalty. At only 14 years old, Jesse was the youngest person to be convicted of murder in Massachusetts, and although he was sentenced to death by hanging, the governor refused to sign the death warrant for such a young boy. In 1876, Jesse's sentence was commuted to life in prison in solitary confinement. Jesse himself would claim to have killed 27 people during his various confessions and recanting. Construction at the Pomeroy's shop and home would unearth 12 bodies, but there was never enough evidence to charge Jesse with further crimes, and he was already serving a life sentence.
The evidence is that there's 12 bodies in the shop.
Right.
They've already found one.
Yeah, it's just,
Boom.
you need something that directly links him to those bodies,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy.
That's insane.
During his imprisonment, Jesse was an avid reader and even began writing. Jesse had numerous escape attempts and suicide attempts. Routine searches of his cell would often reveal tools he intended to use to escape, or objects he planned to use for self-harm. In 1914, Jesse attempted to escape by redirecting a gas line and caused an explosion. Instead of escaping, Jesse injured himself badly and ended up losing an eye as a result of the accident.
That's what you fucking get.
Right? In 1917, the severity of his sentence was reduced again to let him out of solitary confinement. Jesse had spent over 40 years in solitary and was integrated into the general population, where he could socialize and participate in prison activities. In 1929, Jesse's health began deteriorating, and he was transferred to a hospital for the criminally insane. This transfer from jail to Bridgewater facility was Jesse Pomeroy's one and only ride in an automobile. The following year, he attempted to escape again with no success. In 1932, 72-year-old Jesse Pomeroy died in the Bridgewater Hospital for the criminally insane.
Woohoo! You one-eyed bastard.
That was just awful upon awful upon awful.
Yeah.
Just a quadruple decker sandwich of awful stories.
Yeah, fuck Jesse.
I know. Yeah, that was pretty gnarly.
The sewing needle is really getting to me. I don't really hate that.
I know. A lot of these killer kids stories, the victims are younger than them, which is really hard.
Kids killing kids, man.
There's some of the details that I left out because it's so gruesome. Like I said before, I provide the links for all the articles that we use. So if you want more information, it's in there, but I didn't want to include all of it. But it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, we can talk about people getting stabbed, like adults getting stabbed and details and stuff like that when it comes to kids.
Yeah, it's just a whole different ballgame.
Even how the judge didn't want to hang the kid because it's still a kid, even though he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
hanging a kid in public wouldn't be a good...
It's not a good look for anybody.
No. Mm.
So I know that story was particularly bad. It was just one of the most intense ones that I saw when researching this, so I chose to do it. But because this story was particularly horrific and the victims were children, I just want to include some information in our show notes about resources for victims. So
yeah, and they didn't have resources like we have resources now. So if you know, there's parts in the story where you're screaming like, why didn't someone do this or why didn't someone get help? So I mean, here's
we're definitely
going to
include some information.
If you need motherfucking help, check the show notes.
Yep.
Boom. If you see some suspicious ass kids, narc them out. Ask them some questions. Go find an adult.
If you ever see a teenager with a 4-year-old, make sure they're babysitting.
Yeah.
Double check. Make sure their name isn't Jesse.
Make sure it's not 1874.
Next to the various victims resources that we provide in the description and show notes, you'll also find our social media and Patreon.
And give us reviews.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
We appreciate all your reviews, so we look forward to reading off a few more 5-star reviews next week. We thank you guys for this week's 5-star reviews, and we'll see you next time on Murder Dictionary.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.